red flag indicators for different sectors for STR reporting. Now, these red flag indicators provide indicative lists of high-risk customers, products, services, and geographies, and help generate alerts for detecting suspicious transactions. Just some examples of what an RFI or red flag indicator looks like. There can be high value cash deposit or withdrawal in a day, or there is sudden activity in a dormant account, or if the customer left without opening but behaved suspiciously, or if customer has submitted false or forged documents, or investigation, or there is ongoing investigation against customer for criminal offense. So reporting entities also, other than these RFIs, reporting entities will also send STRs based on media reports, public complaints, or inquiries from law enforcement agencies. We maintain deep relationships with law enforcement agencies, attend to their requests, and the request can be for various kinds of information and intelligence. And then we further carry out operational analysis for important or sensitive cases. Agencies rely a lot on information from FIU, not only for developing intelligence, but also for strengthening their ongoing investigations. And these investigations are mostly into money laundering, terror financing, corporate frauds, organized crime, FICN or fake Indian currency, and of course tax evasion. FIU has also collaborated on live cases with agencies on many occasions. Apart from domestic REs and LEAs, FIU India is also a member of the Egmont group of FIUs, through which we actively exchange information and with the counterpart FIUs around the world. This Egmont group is based in Canada. It's an informal network of FIUs and works on the basis of trust and reciprocity. So this constant engagement with reporting entities, law enforcement agencies, and foreign FIUs on the Egmont group has made FIU, our databases in FIU, a very rich repository of financial intelligence. FIU's analysis on cash and suspicious transactions have been found very useful by law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies. The feedback we get from agencies are then used to improve analysis and red flag indicators. And based on these inputs we get from our LEAs, we issue watch lists to reporting entities to further report better and quality STRs. Our in-house compilation of statistics, trend analysis reports, and strategic analysis reports have helped us identify key money laundering trends, typologies, and developments such as in areas of trade-based money laundering, e-wallets, and cryptocurrencies. Now, the success of the FIU depends largely on the ability and capacity of reporting entities in effectively identifying and reporting those transactions. The PMLA, or Prevention of Money Laundering Act, empowers FIU to impose certain obligations on our REs, such as appointing a principal officer and a designated director, verifying and maintaining records of identity of clients, or KYC as we call it, maintaining records of prescribed transactions, which are the STRs, CTRs, and furnishing this information to FIU. We work on increasing awareness of REs about the reporting obligations. We carry out reviews and outreach sessions. FIU also issues guidance notes from time to time to help improve quality of STRs. Under provisions of the PMLA, FIU also ensures compliance to reporting obligations by issuing warnings, directions to comply with instructions, directions to send reports, or even impose penalty. Coming to our main topic of combating fraud. Although countering of money laundering and terror financing is the main focus of FIU, tackling financial frauds has emerged as an important role for the FIU. It can be said that there's a wide spectrum of financial frauds, uh, right from the big ticket banking or stock market scams, which involve defrauding of the financial institutions themselves. We have, on the other end, we have smaller value phishing or other cyber frauds. The bigger high value transaction bank scams involve defrauding of the banks or the stock market, and causes them, the financial institutions, to lose crores of rupees, and also a lot of reputational damage. On the other hand, the smaller amount phishing frauds are where victims are common persons who are lured into passing on sensitive information related to their bank account or credit cards, which are then used to siphon off funds and or purchase goods or services. So, in this wide range of frauds, we also have we come across many other kinds of frauds, such as GST credit fraud, using typically which is done using fake invoices, or another practice which is rampant is claiming fraudulent export benefits. So GST invoice and GST frauds and export fraud, they normally result in looting the government exchequer, which is earned from taxpayer money. Other than this, we have also noticed various other kinds of frauds emerging, which involve increased use of technology, such as multi-level marketing, MLM schemes or Ponzi schemes. Then there are cryptocurrency-based Ponzi schemes. There are mobile app-based loan schemes, lottery scams, cashback frauds. All these typologies of new methodologies of frauds, we learn mostly from the reports filed by REs or feedback we receive from our law enforcement agencies, or also from developing our own analysis. Now, the most prevalent kind of cyber frauds involve smaller amounts, and therefore they are difficult to detect. Uh, they get concealed in layers of legitimate transactions. So many red flag indicators or alerts may not be sufficient to detect them. But they, unless we possibly would be able to detect or even prevent them if reporting entities diligently follow reporting guidelines. For this, the AML CFT teams in all institutions have all the more responsibility of enhanced due diligence and filing STRs related to these frauds. RBI has already mandated banks to comply with measures to secure their technology infrastructure and improve fraud risk management practices. So there is a growing need for all reporting entities to incorporate strong combat mechanism for not only detecting but preventing frauds in real time. Now, when our reporting entities discover fraud, they usually report the case to uh, the police, local police, or the CBI for bigger amounts, or even the Serious Frauds Investigation Office, SFIO, based on the nature of the fraud or the quantum. Now, the challenge here is that one reporting entity may report the case of one fraudster to one agency, but the individual fraudster or the gang would likely be using multiple accounts in multiple banks and multiple payment wallets. Here is where FIU's role becomes important, since as we are centrally placed among all REs and law enforcement agencies. So detection of further instances or even prevention would be possible if all REs are sharing information and agencies are working in tandem. So therefore, we encourage REs to file STRs for every instance of fraud they detect, which they are reporting to the agencies. We are also aware of phishing hotspots, especially in certain districts in the country where there are substantial number of fraudsters thriving using multiple mobile phones, multiple e-wallets, multiple SIM cards on, and all on fake ID proofs. It is often the case that fraudsters take advantage of the vulnerability of customers. So victims are either hesitant to report cases, either because they probably feel embarrassed or find the legal process too daunting, or some other reason. Uh, Such cases may not get reported to legal authorities formally, and therefore we would expect reporting entities, including payment banks, to make it easy for the victim to report the crime swiftly and without any hassles. Then, yet again, merely reporting of such crimes and investigation is seldom effective, as only few cases actually end up in detection of the perpetrators and even lower number in conviction. This situation needs to be reversed, because otherwise it only emboldens the fraudsters to act with impunity. I had mentioned the role of FIU in attempting to detect frauds by linking of reports received from multiple reporting entities. Uh, I would like to use this platform to raise certain issues based on our observations in recent times, based on our analysis of STRs. In many STRs, which involve complaints of fraud, we receive only the details of the victims and not uh, we don't receive the details of the fraudster. So especially when the original source of funds or the ultimate beneficiary of funds gets concealed with the use of UPI payment gateways. Uh, Not just payment gateway, there are wallets and other payment service providers. So in case of an account which just got phished and the funds got siphoned off through UPI, there are no details of the underlying bank accounts to which UPI debits are made. We will get information of the victim's bank account and the victim's probably the victim's payment bank. But on the other side, on the debit side, the victim's reporting entity will just say that the funds went to the certain payment bank. The information, the details of transactions or the KYC of the recipient won't be available to the victim's bank easily. So in absence of such details, the STR becomes non-actionable, and therefore we need to go back to the reporting entity to get for more details of the recipient account. So simply stating the virtual payment address is grossly inadequate for FIU to carry out any meaningful analysis, or even for the law enforcement agency to take immediate steps. So this would be certainly resolved with industry-wide sharing of information, which needs to be expanded with deeper communication between institutions and platforms. Uh, I would like to say that payment service providers have no doubt helped in increasing financial inclusion. And we also understand the growing competition among companies to be the first to launch innovative products to ensure maximum customer convenience. But a risk based approach by issuing safe, secure, and convenient products would build your reputation in the long run. We understand that anonymity promoting products are prevalent and there is a demand for them, but these are not only susceptible to frauds but may also become conduits of terror financing. And I'm sure no financial institution would ever risk reputational damage of such order. Further, there is a strong need of an industry-wide negative list of proven fraudsters and their unique identifiers, so that Other financial institutions may take steps of finance due diligence before starting any new relationship. Whenever a name hits this negative list, all FIs should be aware of before that person tries to avail a new account in their institution. I'd like to inform everyone of CyberSafe, which is an initiative of the Ministry of Home Affairs, jointly developed with the private sector. You can access it at cybersafe.gov.in. The comprehensive system for tackling digital frauds through information sharing between law enforcement agencies and fintech entities. Uh, it, it, it provides a central repository of fraudsters, or as I had mentioned earlier, negative watch list for which agencies have a real-time access. So we encourage all our reporting entities to enroll in CyberSafe, and also at your end, prepare negative screening lists with mobile numbers, bank accounts, and other identifiers like, say, email ID. Reporting entities should also aid in the post fraud incidents inquiries, which the law enforcement agencies take up by closing the tickets on the site, on the portal, as fast as possible. Uh, Finally, I would like to use this platform to convey some expectations we at FIU have from reporting entities. We encourage reporting entities to invest more energy into reporting STRs to FIU, and also contribute to the latest typologies of financial fraud or money laundering. We expect reporting entities to keep themselves updated of the guidelines issued by FIU on emerging trends and sectors, and on improving quality of STRs. I should mention here that guidance notes which are issued by FIU are not just advisories, but they are binding in nature for all FIs. I hope you appreciate the importance of implementing such directions in the greater interest of customers, financial institutions, and above all, our national security. Thank you.
Thank you, Salil sir. I think it was pretty much enlightening for us to, have these interactions. Often seen in the industry that people are hesitant to, talk out, reach out to FIU. I think you taking this effort to enlighten us around what is the role of an FIU, how can, intermediaries, how can fintech players actually come in, and how do we contribute towards a much safer transaction platforms across India for us to grow. Sir, couple of good things I really liked about your approach in terms of what was highlighted was effectively uh, that in terms of combating of financial terrorism or any of these activities of money laundering, FIU is any which way is playing a central role. And what today the companies struggle with, because it is not only a reputational risk where, if my customers or my clients get defrauded, but it's also something which is bad for an ecosystem. Now, as a company, as an individual, what you have rightly pointed out is sometimes the legal hassle or people are hesitant, they will not go in. But if we start contributing to the FIU, while an individual action or an individual fraud might not be something that is getting acted upon, but if we combine all of the reports, I think we will be able to identify these perpetrators much faster, and the respective law enforcement agencies can, action upon that. Uh, so a couple of questions, if you may, right? Now,
Yes.
one of the questions that we had is, do we need to file an STR or a CTR for a transaction, let's say, which is coming from a bank? I think this is more from an angle of the second part of the leg where you're talking about the fintech entities or the intermediaries in place. So there is always a banking channel which is there. What role will these intermediaries play if they are supposed to file an CTR or an STR?
Just to clarify, you are asking that, say, an intermediary or a payment bank is receiving a transaction from a bank.
Mm-hmm.
a banking company?
Yes.
As opposed to say a customer.
No. So if let's say a customer has an account in a, let's say, a bank A, and he's trying to, let's say, do a transaction with a bank B or with a PPI or with something. Now, in case there is a CTR, or CTR technically will exist if I'm taking along a cash loading of a wallet.
Cash.
But if it is effectively, let's say, a money which is flowing from a bank A to a bank B, either over a UPI platform or as a PG or something else. Now, of course, since it's already there in the banking system, there is some information. If they find it suspicious, they will definitely file for it. What roles should the intermediaries look at playing over here?
We would encourage the intermediaries to develop their own heuristics along with partnering with the FIU. We have our red flag indicators, and using those, you can generate your alerts.
Sure.
These alerts are the inputs to identify suspicious transactions. I mean, the suspicious transactions have to be screened by the principal officer, and there has to be due application of mind by the principal officer before submitting to FIU. And all information which is available with the institution is of the reporting entity is expected to be submitted to FIU.
Sure. So if I may, I would want to expand a little on that. Given that I learned it from you, one thing which you have rightly pointed out is application of mind. Often, with the new tech companies, with us being in the tech play, right, we think that it is a system which will flag and we just file it and forget it. I think that application of mind is something which is very, very critical. So if you
Yes.
could like maybe elaborate a little bit on that, sir.
So the system, most banks or financial institutions or reporting entities have their own transaction monitoring or risk mitigation systems in which they are going to get large number of alerts. But not every alert can be held to be suspicious. That is
Yeah.
why there's certain amount that has to be followed by certain amount of investigation by the compliance team, the AML CFT team. uh, Checks with the even checks with the customers, check their profile. Enhanced due diligence even involves contacting them, verifying the transactions, and then only there's a lot of due diligence required before reporting the transaction to FIU. Otherwise, FIU would be flooded with just alerts and of transactions, which most of them may be legitimate. So the application of mind involves a lot more processes of verification of customer credentials, whether the customer actually did carry out a transaction, the whereabouts of the customer, certain things. If the reporting entity knows, then that adds a lot of value to the STR, and it aids the investigation by the agency further.
Right, sir. Sir, one more questions is around, can we report mobile numbers which are used in a phishing fraud module, right? So, well, you mentioned on the STR, will FIU be the right agency where we report this, or should we do it at a CyberSafe level? What are your views around on that?
If there involves some financial transactions, if that mobile number, you have seen that some debits credits have gone through your system, then we would expect reporting. But even otherwise, all kinds of information which you think would help FIU and agencies is always welcome.
Sure, sir.
I am sorry, I didn't mention FIU website here. For those who are interested, it is fiuindia.gov.in.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. One of the another questions, and which even I sometimes had struggled back, how do we identify a suspicious transaction? So given that the industry, right, it is very, very variant, right? If I look back at a banking where the average ticket size or a transaction size could be anywhere from a 10,000 to a few lakhs, versus let's say if I go in a payment gateway, it will be few thousands, to a wallet or a PPI, it might be few hundred rupees. So how does each of the entity look at identifying these suspicious transactions?
Our FIU has made the red flag indicators in collaboration with law enforcement agencies and regulators. for different sectors. So there are sector specific. So a banking company, for a banking company, a sudden high value transaction uh, could be is a source of an alert, but only once they look at that alert and then they take action upon it by examining the account holder, examining the related persons, examining the profile such as nature of business or occupation of the individuals involved. That and further application of mind, as I had mentioned, or even physical checks, that would be the source of a good quality STR.
Right.
And
Right.
then further linkages, banks will also have their own methods of linking to which are the other accounts linked to this particular individual or entity. Now, for payment banks, high value transactions may not be there. You would be dealing with smaller amounts. So their smaller amounts typically would be things like uh, very high frequency of a same amount which is going in and out. So that could be potential routing of funds or to convert cash. So, but only after the due diligence takes place, where you contact the customer, you carry out that enhanced due diligence of tracing whether the documents are genuine. That is when you would file a good quality STR to us by saying that the alert we received was based on our systems detecting it, but we followed it up with due diligence, and therefore we are filing this suspicious transaction report. I hope this answers your question, Anuj.
This does, sir. This does
Yeah,
to a
yeah.
lot of extent. I think while FIU has to look at from multiple aspects, I think the respective domain experts which are sitting in each of the companies, they need to identify what are the trends which are an anomaly. Uh, and once you've built around that, once you've applied your mind on what it is, I think that is what needs to get flagged and then get reported to FIU. Uh, so Sir, one more question, if that might be a last question that you might have. Is there any unique difference that you have seen between, let's say, a debit card or a credit card fraud, or let's say anything on in terms from a bank to a non-bank kind of a fraud inside money laundering?
When we talk about money laundering, we are dealing with proceeds of crime. That the crime, there is a predicate offense, underlying offense, and the launderer is the funds are used to the funds earned from the crime are being used to are concealed through, say, legitimate transactions. Uh, Credit cards are generally used to uh, purchase goods or services.
Sure.
So it could be use of cards could be one, what we call as a typology of money laundering, where the proceeds of crime are probably used to spend money on maybe, say, luxury goods or any kinds of availing any kind of service, as compared to, say, the more traditional form of money laundering, which is through layer the funds and bring it back into a legitimate business, or invest in an offshore company, or a loan to a shell company. As compared to these credit cards are what we call a different typology,
Okay.
but a very important and emerging one.
Okay, sir. Sir, one last thing you had mentioned on the CyberSafe. People are interested to know how can they register. If you could share some information.
I think the website is quite. I'm told it's quite easy to use. Cybersafe.gov.in. This you
Yeah.
can just go to the website. Uh, there are guidelines over there of how one can register or sign up for be a part of CyberSafe.
Sure. So I can probably end that. So I've been part of CyberSafe. I think it's, thank you, sir. You actually brought it up. You can either register on the website. If you're facing any issues, you can write to me at anuj.bhansali, Bhansali, @phonepe.com. Would be more than glad to connect you with the right department inside MHA who's looking after CyberSafe. That's actually a phenomenal effort. Just FYI, that's somewhere more than 1 lakh numbers are present of fraudsters, which has been collected as a negative database. I think there's some really great steps that the government is taking. With that, sir, would like to thank you so much for taking out time to address us, to enlighten us over here. Please do keep in touch. Please do visit FIU-IND. If you have any questions, you can write to helpdesk at FIU. You can get your queries answered. What I have found, to be very honest, is it was a very changing experience for me. They're very, very friendly in terms of educating, in terms of enlightening us on what could we do. Please do reach out to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, I.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhansali, and thank you so much, Mr. Bijur, for taking time out and being a part of this session. Thank you to the audience for being a part of the session as well. We will shortly be back with yet another exciting session. Please do stay tuned in. Thank you.
Thank you.